Hey there, my name's Rob and I'm from AutoRFP.ai. Today we're going to be jumping into how you can use ChatGPT projects and the powers of ChatGPT's latest models to answer all of your requests for proposals, your requests for informations, requests for quotes, security questionnaires, and any expression of interest you might get from your potential buyers. Let's jump into it. So here I'm going to create a new project. We're going to call that our RFP response project. And in this project, what we're going to be doing is pulling in all of our relevant company information, whether that be things like our policies and procedures, for instance, our business continuity policy. We're going to pull in other relevant information like our customer stories or case studies. We're going to pull in, and most importantly, our past RFP responses. If you don't have any past RFP responses, potentially if you have other areas like your help documentation or service documentations in relation to what kind of services or products you offer, that might be really helpful for kind of like functional or non-functional requirements that you might get in a request for proposal. Alrighty, let's jump into it. So first we're going to start with instructions. Now I've got one pre-planned here. And an instruction, what that is providing ChatGPT a lot of context and kind of like a master prompt that it uses, and every single time it looks to answer any of our additional prompts in a chat. And so it's really important to set up a master prompt or instruction here for success. So what we have here is I'm giving it what part is it playing. So it's a B2B SaaS sales professional, because my fake company is a HR tech company in the US, where an RFP manager and response writer, and its primary responsibility is to complete RFPs, RFIs, security questionnaires, and other relevant information for this SaaS company. It's only going to be using official content provided and uploaded project files. So I'm being really restrictive here in my instructions to really try to reduce the chance of hallucination. So what I don't want happening is the AI to provide an incorrect response that it's made up of one of my RFPs. Of course, I'm going to be checking it before I submit it to the customer, but I want to make sure it's still pulling the information from the relevant files rather than just giving me kind of made up and hallucinated answers. So I've provided a bunch of different prompts here and instructions to really make that less likely. And then here, what I have is what kind of answers do I want ChatGPT to give? So yes or no, 1 to 2 sentence explanations. I always like where it's, yes, comma, and then has information for that RFP. So that's what I'm asking here. I'm going to click save, and I've just added that instruction to my ChatGPT project. And you can see it here, and that's always going to use that when I'm going forward. Next, I want to add my files. Your files might be things in relation to your company, like your company overview, your policies, your procedures, customer stories or case studies, and most importantly is your past RFP responses. So if you've previously done RFPs and proposals and so on, you want to make sure you're providing that information there. Again, make sure the information is timely, relevant, and don't provide too much here, although I just said provide as much as possible. If you have too much, you're going to potentially hit the context window of the token limit of ChatGPT when it goes to answer it, and might not be able to look through all the documents. But B, it's actually more likely that you hit the limit that you can have in a project. But start by giving it as much as possible, and then try to remove things if it's not as relevant for those particular answers, or when you go to answer a particular RFP, ask it to only refer to certain project files that are relevant for that RFP. So here, I'm going to add my documents. So I have past RFP answers and a business continuity plan, and I have a company document that's all really relevant for my request for proposals. So I'm going to add that in, and then, like I said, ChatGPT will be able to search those documents. These are all in docx. They could be in PDF, PowerPoint, and so on, Excel, and it's going to then use that when I'm going to answer. And you can see there's my project files. Next, I'm going to be trying to answer a new RFP here. Can you help me answer this RFP? So I'm going to add that file, and here's my fake RFP. This RFP is a fake library in the United States, and they're looking for HR tech, specifically applicant tracking software, which is what my software or fake software company provides. Jumping in here, it's going to, and you can see there, I haven't provided it much of a prompt. Usually when I'm using ChatGPT, I provide a lot more information, but because I have those custom instructions and project files, it's using all that context when answering this particular information. So even though this is quite straightforward, it's actually going to be looking through and then try to answer that information. It's now looking at, you can see here, it's going through and analyzing. It actually did pick up that my fake RFP had two sheets. So I've got a sheet for my non-functional requirements and a sheet for my functional requirements. And it's going to be going through here and answering that information. And there we go, it's answered that. So let's have a quick look at it. So I'll download that information. Great. So ChatGPT has gone through there with our project instructions and looked to answer all of the Excel questions. So jumping in here, we can see that it's completed the functional RFP responses. And you can see that I've kind of chatted through and asked it to have a look at all the relevant information. It's gone through and answered that information, and then I can kind of download those relevant CSVs. This one's a little bit confusing because I've had multiple tabs, so it's kind of worked them through all separately, and then, yeah, try to answer each one as it can. You kind of see this information here. It's done pretty well. There's some pretty useful information, and once I export that and pull it back together into a spreadsheet, I can have a look at what my functional and non-functional requirements look like. So here I have my requirements, and you can see here it's kind of answered those different details. So does my system support SSO integration with Active Directory? Yeah, it says it's a pre-built AD connectors are available. Whether this is my fake customer, so whether this is correct or not, I'm not sure. So I gave it some fake information to base it off. But you can kind of work through, and obviously you would know your company best whether this information was actually correct. It hasn't really followed my instructions too well in terms of yes, comma. It's kind of just provided more generic description and comments, but I can obviously go through here and answer those. Either way, it saved me a lot of time. It saved me from having to either A, manually go through and find those answers, or B, it saved me time from having to look back and kind of copy and paste between those responses. That's pretty good for a $20 a month subscription. Now, if you're doing anything larger than this, or if you want to save even more time, so I'm Rob and we're from AutoRFP.ai. We're an AI RFP software. So you can kind of see here, we do everything that ChatGPT might be helping you with and a lot more. We have great collaboration features, built-in trust scores so you know how reliable that answer is, and not just, and no project limit in terms of how many different content items you can have. You can load as many as you'd like. You can upload PDFs, Word docs, will automatically answer and generate responses for you. We're trusted by some of the world's largest companies, from startups to Fortune 500s, including software companies like Sugar CRM, Red Rover, or FinTech OS. And we're rated 4.9 stars and more on G2, Gartner, and other review sites. But you can find out all about us at AutoRFP.ai. And if you're interested in learning more, you can, of course, book an online demonstration. I'm Rob from AutoRFP, and I hope you found that run through really interesting around RFP response with ChatGPT projects.